Hi everyone, and welcome to my review of the Tanchjim Hana. It's a little bit late, but I really wanted to be able to listen to it properly and come up with a good, honest, unbiased opinion about it, and not just jump the gun and say certain things. Anyway, let's get straight into it. Here's the box, very typical of Tanchjim in this type of product. It's exactly the same box basically as the oxygen, the difference being only the colors, obviously. Excuse me. So sleeve out of the way, the box then opens up like so. Inside we then have oh, there we go. Okay, we then have this initial box which brings tips and the famous Tanchjim filters and some paperwork. Okay, over here, or actually where the IMs are, there are the tips and the cable, which by the way, let me just say, it's actually a pretty decent cable. It's not a bad cable at all, not a bad cable at all. The tips, we have bass enhancement and treble enhancement, and they are actually quite decent as well. I'm using them. And over here, don't want to tear this. Oh, come on, there we go. We have the case, which is a very, very nice looking case. I mean, really nice. I mean, it really is nice. With the standard cable, it's perfect. However, because I am not using the standard cable, I cannot use the case because it just doesn't fit there. So I had to use an alternative case, which I'll show you in a minute. Anyway, just put this away nicely. There we go. Cover. And the sleeve. Okay, that's out of the way. On to the IEMs themselves. Well, if those of you are familiar with Tanchjim and the oxygens in particular, they will recognize them. These are basically, in terms of appearance at least, recolored oxygens. The shell is a metal shell, exquisite build quality. Maybe some might find it a little bit too blingy, okay, but I don't find it particularly blingy. I find it just tasteful. The cable that I'm using is an XI NHS cable, and this thing is just gorgeous. I mean, look at this. That's my finger, so you can have an idea of how thick this cable is. That's a serious cable there. Beautiful cable. Silver plated cable, by the way. Okay. And like I said, the IMs are just basically the same as the oxygens, all metal shell. The stem is a little bit short, so fit could be a little bit of a problem, although I mean, with these tips, I actually found them to fit pretty decent. They grab on nicely to the inside of my ear, and although they don't fit too deep, they fit nicely, and they're not fatiguing in any sense or anything of the sort. And so I didn't have any issues with them. And yeah, that's basically it. I mean, nothing more really to say. They got some good weight to them. That's that. On to what we all want to know, which is what do they sound like and what are they like. Well, I compare them to the oxygens, which was kind of expected. I compare them also to the Yuan Li, the T-Force Yuan Li. And actually, when I reviewed the Yuan Li, I already mentioned that somehow the Hana would fit along the lines of this equation. If that was, like, let's say, a cheaper alternative to the oxygen, that this would perhaps also be a cheaper alternative to the oxygen, and where would that sit in between, the other two? Anyway, on to the IMs themselves, and that's what we want to all know. The overall tuning is also, I would say, a Harman tuned IM. Although it's slightly warmer in the bass than the oxygens. I mean, the difference isn't much. It's very, very little, and it's only really in the sub bass that you see that difference, but there is a difference there. Actually, if you give me 1 second, I'll show you a quick graph here so you can see. 1 second. 1 second. Okay. There we go. Okay, so the orange line, let's put it that way, that's the oxygen, and the other line, the bluish purplish line, is the Hana 2021, and where you can actually see that there's only an increase in, let's say, response is sorry, well, below 100 hertz, you slowly start seeing the Hana, gaining, and it has roughly 2 dBs more, 2 to 4 dBs more, right at the low end. But the majority is basically just 1-2 dBs of an increase. So you really have to be, really attentive to the changes, and otherwise the rest of the response, as you can see, is pretty much there we go. It's pretty much the same. They both follow each other's curve quite nicely. So this would lead us to believe that perhaps, and just perhaps, I don't want to say anything that's not true, this could be the oxygen driver in another shell, or a similar driver to the oxygen in another shell, or just a retuned. Well, by another shell I mean in a retuned version of the shell. It could be. Maybe it's not, but it could be. So this tuning that it has is also very reminiscent of stuff like the Starfield, the Moondrop Starfield, and the Moondrop Aria. So whoever likes the Harman tuned IMs, they will definitely like the Hana, I would say that. And as I mentioned, again, the Yuan Li also has a very similar Harman style of tuning. What about the rest? Well, bass, like I just showed you, is more skewed toward the sub bass. The mid bass is pretty neutral. It blends nicely with the mids. It's very well, in my opinion, it's very well textured. So it's got enough quantity, loads of quality. So perfect in that aspect. It's got a nice fast impact to it. So it's a gun. It's fun. It's engaging. Okay. Vocals are, the mids are good. Let's put it that way. The mids are good, but for example, the vocals might seem a little bit less forward as compared to, for example, an Aria. The Aria might have the vocals slightly a bit more forward, and as well, if you compare that to the oxygen somehow seems that the vocals just come out a little bit better than on the Hana. Again, and I want to make this perfectly clear, we're not talking huge differences. It's just minor things that come across, and probably more noticeable on female vocals than on male vocals. Treble is enough. It's suffice. It matches up nicely with the amount of bass that is present, so there isn't any lack of cleanliness or ability to gather details and so on and so forth. There's plenty air, let's put it that way. The one thing that is nice is the upper mids and the treble. There's no, at least I didn't perceive any sibilance. And again, we're talking about an IM of this price range, and I didn't perceive any sibilance, which is worth really mentioning. It's a very, overall, the sound of the Hana, in my opinion, is very smooth, which again is what I mentioned about the T-Force. The T-Force has a very smooth sound. It's very easy to listen to. It's a very pleasing IM to listen to, and this just follows the same the same formula. Let's put it that way. Where do these shine? These shine in their tonality, in the timbre. That's where, in my opinion, they really shine. If again the T-Force was good at that, this is better than the T-Force at that. It's just very organic. It's really a pleasure to listen to stuff on here, because it just sounds very true. it's not digital. It's a very, very, very nice timbre, in my opinion, and with the stuff that I listen to, of course. Imaging is very good. I find the imaging to be superior to the imaging of the T-Force, but inferior to the Oxygen. The Oxygen in that aspect has got better imaging, better detail capabilities as well. But I'll get to the comparisons a little bit in just a little bit. Soundstage is not the widest, it's average. Again, same thing that happened already with the T-Force. And basically, in a nutshell, that's basically it. So, nice bass, sub bass focused, good transition between the mid bass and the lower mids. The mids, the vocals could be just a little tad forward, but nothing again that is in any way perceived as lacking or anything of the sort. Treble is perfect, no sibilance, has enough detail capability, has enough detail retrieval abilities. Soundstage is perhaps a little bit down, it could be a little bit wider, but it's fine. If I really want to pick on anything, I would say that I would like maybe just a little bit more treble. So for example, if I was to compare this to the Aria, I find that the Aria has just got that little bit extra air up top as compared to this. But that's I want to kind of basically stick to these, and the only reason why I mentioned the Aria is because it's also a Harman tuned IEM, and it's probably below $100. Below $100 is probably the better or one of the best IEMs to choose, as compared with Oxygen. Let me just get it here. So as compared with the Oxygen, let me see if I can put the Hanas here and get this the T-Force. Okay. Let's compare the three babies. I stand by what I said initially when I jumped the gun before actually giving the Hana the deserved time of listen, and I will say that definitely yes. If the T-Force is a poor man's, let's say, choice to the Oxygen, this is also a poor man's choice to the Oxygen, and it sits definitely in between the two of them. So Oxygen first, Hana, and then the T-Force. What are the strengths and weaknesses of each? This has got the best bass of all. The bass on these two is very similar, slightly more full on this one on certain stuff. But again, all of them, the differences are minimal. But the best one is the Hana. Okay, mids, the best mids here belong to the Oxygen. With these two, a close second. Okay, highs, the best highs again, Oxygen, then the Hana, and then the T-Force. Once more, the differences are not huge, we're talking minimal differences, but they can obviously be perceived. Soundstage, the best is the Oxygen, these two are basically the same. Imaging capabilities, the Oxygen first, then the Hana, although the Hana actually gives the Oxygen a good run for its money, and then the T-Force. And I just can't say this enough. We are talking minimal differences. It's not huge stuff that oh my god, no, but you can hear them. Okay, and if your ear is trained enough and you have decent equipment, you'll notice it. And again, it all depends on what you listen to. If you're just listening to EDM and boom boom boom, then who cares about imaging and stuff like that. So in a nutshell, that's basically my opinion about the Hana 2021. It is another alternative to the Oxygen if you do not have the money to go as far as purchasing the Oxygen. It is, for me, superior to the T-Force, although I must commend the effort that the T-Force did. I mean, this is their first IEM, and if this is what they offer us for the first time, I can imagine what they're going to be doing for the second time around. In terms of value, we're talking about $180, $169 to $189 for this. We're talking about $109 to $129 for this, and the Oxygen anywhere between $249 to $279. So, which would be the best value for money? Personally, myself, the Hana, definitely, and then the T-Force, and then the Oxygen if you really have that extra cash to spend. I mean, I buy the Hana and a decent cable, and I'm probably already at the base Oxygen price. So but like I said, look, this is all subjective to each one's personal taste, and like I said, with the music that I listen to, with the stuff that I like listening to, it's varied. It goes from Diana Krall to Marvin Gaye to what else, to Shelby Lynne to Jennifer Warnes to George Benson, Sam Smith. So I listen to a lot of stuff. Also some EDM. I like listening to some EDM. So I don't want people to think that I'm maybe no a boring person. No, I listen to varied amount of music. I like kind of soultronic as well. I like jazz. So I listen to a lot of stuff, and when I try and assess my IMs, I try and pick a few songs so that I get an overall good impression, and my opinions, although they are mine, they are also well constructed and will enable whoever is choosing to have a good idea. And yeah, that's basically it. There we go. Hannah, let me just focus on this once more, just so you guys can have a nice look at it. I mean, that's a good looking IM. Who cares if it's blingy and gold and so on? I mean, I don't. It really does. It really does look good. It looks good. Anyway, take care. Bye bye.